The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the windows of the Brooklyn apartment complex like a relentless heartbeat. Inside, the faint hum of an air conditioner mixed with the flicker of a muted television screen. Neighbors said the man had been alive the night before, seen carrying takeout bags and whistling a Sinatra tune as he climbed the narrow stairwell. But by morning, his body was cold. Detective Ethan Cole stood over the corpse, arms folded, eyes narrowing with the kind of skepticism that came from 15 years on the force. No wounds, no blood, no signs of forced entry. The victim, a 47-year-old accountant named Richard Hale, looked as though he had simply fallen asleep on his couch and forgotten to wake up. Cardiac arrest, the uniformed officer beside him suggested, though the words carried no conviction. Cole crouched, scanning the room. Empty food containers sat on the coffee table, still greasy with sauce. The logo stamped across the bag caught his eye. Mandarin Garden, a well-known Chinese restaurant on the Lower East Side. Nothing unusual about takeout. Not in New York. Still, Cole noted it. The medical examiner arrived an hour later. After a quick preliminary check, she shook her head. No visible trauma. No defensive wounds. No petechiae in the eyes. Whatever killed him, it left nothing behind. Cole's jaw tightened. He had seen overdoses, poisonings, even bizarre cult rituals, always something, some residue of chaos left in the wake. But Richard Hale lay there as though he had been plucked clean of struggle, robbed of even the dignity of a reason for death. By the afternoon, the case was already headed for the back shelf, where unexplained heart failures went to collect dust. But Cole couldn't shake it. Something gnawed at him. Maybe it was the timing. The man had placed a delivery order 9:37 p.m., timestamped neatly on his phone. Maybe it was the absence of any medication or alcohol. Or maybe it was simply instinct, that primal detective's itch that whispered, this wasn't natural. 2 days later, another body turned up. Different neighborhood, different background. A young paralegal named Samantha Reeves, found lifeless in her upscale Manhattan apartment. Same eerie tableau. No signs of violence, no trace of toxins, no witnesses. And on her counter, still neatly folded in a brown paper bag, was the telltale logo of Mandarin Garden. Cole stood in her kitchen, heart pounding. To death's sane, invisible hand. A coincidence, perhaps. But coincidences had never sat well with him. The city outside roared as it always did. Sirens, traffic, the endless pulse of life that refused to pause for the dead. Yet within these walls, a chill spread through him. Someone was out there, slipping past every safeguard, killing without leaving a fingerprint, a hair, or even a bruise. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt the old surge, the mixture of dread and exhilaration that came with knowing he had stumbled onto something far larger than the case file would suggest. He straightened, the shadows of the apartment pressing in around him. If Mandarin Garden was truly the thread that tied these bodies together, then he was staring at the beginning of a pattern only he seemed willing to see. And patterns, Cole knew, always led somewhere dark. Detective Ethan Cole didn't believe in coincidences, not when two bodies fell within days of each other, both with delivery bags from the same restaurant. Chinatown was alive with neon and smoke the evening he went there, the streets choked with tourists chasing authenticity and locals weaving through the crowd with the speed of survival. Lanterns swayed overhead, throwing restless shadows onto cracked sidewalks. Mandarin Garden sat on the corner of Hester Street, wedged between a pawn shop and a herbal medicine store. To the casual eye it was unremarkable. Greasy windows, faded signage, the perpetual scent of soy and sesame oil clinging to the doorway. But Cole knew better than to trust appearances. Inside, the place buzzed with clatterwalks hissing, waiters shouting orders in Cantonese, a line of delivery bags waiting for couriers. Cole flashed his badge at the hostess, a nervous young woman who glanced over her shoulder before leading him to a table in the back. The manager appeared moments later, wiping his hands on an apron. His name was Victor Liang, a heavy-set man with a smile too rehearsed to be genuine. Detective Victor said, feigning warmth. What brings you here? Health inspection. I assure you our permits are spotless. Cole leaned in, lowering his voice. 2 people who ordered from here are dead. No signs of violence. No trace of poison. I want to know who prepared their meals, who delivered them, and where you source your food. The smile faltered, just for a second, before snapping back in place. We serve hundreds every night. If someone died after eating, it is not our food. People die in this city all the time. Detective, stress, heart problems, drugs. Why blame dinner? Cole didn't answer, just studied in. The man's hands trembled slightly, and his eyes darted toward the kitchen. Guilt, fear, or something else? He asked for delivery records, but Liang shook his head. Privacy. Customers don't like police snooping into what they order. Cole's patience thinned. This isn't about privacy. It's about murder. The word hung heavy between them, and for the first time, Liang's void cracked. He leaned closer. You want advice? Detective, drop this. If you dig too deep, you'll find more than you can handle. People bigger than me. Bigger than this restaurant. Before Cole could push further, a delivery boy brushed past, balancing bags of steaming food. The detective caught the faintest whiff of something metallic beneath the aroma of garlic and ginger, something unnatural. Cole's instinct screamed. There was more here. But before he left, a thin woman seated near the window caught his eye. She was scribbling in a small leather notebook, her gaze flicking toward him and then away too quickly. Reporter, or something else. Outside, the city swallowed him whole again, neon bleeding into rain-slick pavement. His phone buzzed. Another call. Another death. Different borough. Same story. Same bag. Cole tightened his grip on the phone, feeling the ground shift beneath him. The pattern was widening, and Mandarin Garden was at its center. But the real question wasn't how people were dying. It was why. The sirens wailed as Detective Ethan Coles and Mark Sedan pulled up to a brownstone in Queens. The night was damp, fog curling low over the street lamps. Neighbors crowded behind yellow tape, whispering in uneasy tones, as though the air itself carried infection. Inside, the victim lay sprawled across the kitchen floor. Male, mid-30s, gym clothes still damp with sweat. No struggle, no sign of forced entry, just a body emptied of life, as if someone had flipped a switch. Cole scanned the counter. His chest tightened. Another takeout bag from Mandarin Garden, its receipt still stapled to the top. Sesame chicken, fried rice, extra soy sauce. Delivered just an hour before his death. 3 bodies in 5 days, muttered his partner, Detective Maria Torres, who had joined him on the case. She was sharp-eyed, Bronx-born, with a streak of stubbornness that matched Cole's. No toxins in the first 2. Autopsies clean. If this one comes back the same, Cole cut her off. Then we're staring at a killer who doesn't leave fingerprints. Or maybe doesn't even need to touch the victims. Torres frowned. You think it's the food. I think it's the connection, Cole replied, crouching beside the body. He noticed something odd, a small, almost invisible puncture on the victim's wrist. Not a needle mark. Too clean, too deliberate. More like a pinprick. He pulled on gloves and examined the takeout bag carefully. Nothing out of the ordinary. Plastic containers, chopsticks, soy packets. But the bag itself felt stiff, heavier than usual. He traced the seams with his fingers and found a thin metallic thread woven into the paper. Torres raised an eyebrow. You're saying the bag itself killed him? Cole didn't answer. Not yet, but his gut told him they were looking at something more sinister than tainted lo-mein. Something engineered. Back at the precinct, he pinned the victims' photos to the board. 3 faces stared back. An accountant, a paralegal, a fitness trainer. No overlap. No shared workplace. Different boroughs, different circles. The only link, Mandarin Garden. And yet, as he studied their backgrounds, something whispered at him from the edges. Richard Hell, the accountant, had once testified in a financial fraud case. Samantha Reeves had interned at a law firm tied to the same corporation. And now this trainer Cole flipped through the man's file had a brother who worked in cybersecurity for a government contractor. Coincidence? Or the outline of a larger design? Cole's phone buzzed again. And no number. He hesitated, then answered. A woman's voice, low and urgent. Stop digging into Mandarin Garden. You don't know what you're dealing with. Before he could respond, the line went dead. Cole froze, staring at his phone. Someone was watching, someone who knew he was circling closer. And for the first time, he realized this wasn't just about random deaths or poisoned food. It was about secrets. Secrets worth killing for. New York at night was a different city, one that thronged with quiet menace between the neon and the subway screeches. Detective Ethan Cole walked the empty streets near Chinatown, feeling the familiar press of anxiety at the back of his neck. Mandarin Garden had gone dark for the evening, but Cole knew the restaurant wasn't the real threat, it was only the front. A figure emerged from an alley, thin, moving too smoothly, too purposefully. Cole tensed, hand hovering near his holster. But before he could act, the person slipped past him, disappearing into the wet fog. He quickened his pace, eyes scanning, but the street seemed empty. At the precinct, Maria Torres greeted him with a grave expression. Another one, she said, dropping a folder onto his desk. Fifth victim, Upper East Side. Same delivery. No signs of trauma. Autopsies clean. Cole flipped through the photos. The victim, a young architect named Daniel Pierce, was sprawled on his floor, eyes open in silent terror. What unnerved him most was the look on Daniel's face. Recognition. Whoever or whatever killed him, he had known it was coming. Cole's instinct screamed. This was escalating. Whoever was behind these deaths wasn't content to kill quietly, they were sending a message. He returned to Mandarin Garden the next day, but the restaurant seemed off. Delivery orders were unusually small, the staff evasive, their smiles tight-forced. Cole noticed cameras mounted in corners, angles too precise to be ordinary. Why all the surveillance? He asked Victor Liang, the manager, who now avoided eye contact. Security, Liang muttered. Times are dangerous. You never know who's watching. Cole didn't buy it. He scanned the kitchen through the open doorway. Stainless steel gleamed, and a faint metallic smell lingered in the air, subtle, almost imperceptible. Something about it made his stomach twist. Back at his apartment, Cole reviewed the victims' timelines. Orders placed, meals delivered, deaths occurring within hours. The pattern wasn't random. Someone had orchestrated it with precision. Then his phone vibrated. A text message, a photo of his own apartment door, taken from across the street. The caption, "Next." Cole's blood ran cold. Whoever was doing this knew him, was tracking him, and was escalating their intimidation. He realized that to stop this, he couldn't just follow the trail of the dead. He had to predict the next strike and get inside the mind of someone willing to kill without leaving a trace. The city lights flickered outside his window. Indifferent to the terror unfolding in a single apartment, Cole leaned back, thinking about the victims, the accountant, the paralegal, the trainer, the architect, and a chilling truth settled in his chest. The killer wasn't choosing randomly. He was hunting, and Ethan Cole was now part of the game. Detective Ethan Cole's life had begun to shrink around him, the streets of New York transforming into a labyrinth of suspicion and shadow. Every alley, every corner, every delivery bag felt like a potential threat. Mandarin Garden had gone quiet, but Cole knew the quiet was deceptive. Silence, he reminded himself, often spoke louder than words. He started digging deeper into the restaurant's operations. Delivery records, supplier invoices, employee histories, everything pointed to normalcy on the surface, yet subtle anomalies emerged. A courier named Liang Wu had vanished without a trace a week prior. Supplier receipts listed ingredients from obscure vendors, all seemingly legitimate, but all registered under shell companies that didn't exist outside of tax records. Cole walked the streets near Canal Street, tracing the path of deliveries. He noticed a pattern invisible to casual observers. The bags moved not randomly. but according to a schedule that correlated with high-value targets, people with access to sensitive information, past witnesses in financial investigations, or employees of corporations with deep secrets. It was then that he received an unexpected visit. A woman in a sharp black coat appeared at his apartment door, her eyes cautious, alert. She introduced herself as Vivian Harper, a freelance investigative journalist. "I've been following Mandarin Garden," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder as if someone might be watching. "You're not imagining it. They're not just delivering food, they're delivering death." Cole studied her. "And you have proof." Vivian handed him a small flash drive. "It's all there: shipping manifests, internal emails, even logs showing who the victims were before they ordered. This isn't just a restaurant. It's a network, a silent machine designed to eliminate people without leaving a trace. Someone big is running it." Cole felt the weight of the revelation settle in. This wasn't a random killer. This was an organization. And they had eyes everywhere. As he plugged in the drive, his phone buzzed with another message. "Stop or you'll be next." He looked up. Vivian's eyes were wide, and behind them, he saw the reflection of a van parked across the street, engine idling. The realization hit both of them simultaneously. They were being watched, hunted, and could be trapped at any moment. Suddenly, the doorknob rattled. Someone was trying to get in. Cole moved instinctively, positioning himself between Vivian and the door. Whoever had been taunting him was no longer content with intimidation. They were escalating to direct confrontation. A shadow fell across the threshold. Cole caught a glimpse of a face obscured by a hood, metallic glint in their hand. Without thinking, he grabbed a heavy paperweight from his desk and hurled it, striking the intruder. Chaos erupted. The figure bolted into the night, leaving only a faint metallic scent in the apartment, a chemical tang that made Cole's stomach churn. Vivian clutched his arm. "They're real," she whispered. "And they're coming for you." Cole's mind raced. Mandarin Garden was no longer just a case, it was the hub of a hidden, lethal network capable of killing with surgical precision. And now the hunters had added him to their list. The city beyond his window pulsed as if nothing had changed. But Cole knew better. The streets of New York had become a battlefield, and the war was only beginning. Detective Ethan Cole stared at his laptop screen in the dim glow of his apartment. Vivian Harper had gone through the flash drive meticulously, uncovering a digital footprint that stretched far beyond Mandarin Garden. Hidden email servers, encrypted spreadsheets, and delivery logs painted a picture of an invisible operation. Each bag of takeout wasn't just a meal, it was a delivery mechanism, a weapon in the hands of a faceless organization. Cole traced the IP addresses, running through proxies and VPNs, but the network was designed to mask every move. Whoever orchestrated this new technology inside out. Every victim had been chosen with care. People with access to sensitive information, potential whistleblowers, or anyone who had stumbled too close to dangerous secrets. Vivian leaned over his shoulder. "You see this?" she whispered. "They're not just killing. They're testing. Every delivery teaches them something new. And they know someone is watching." Cole's eyes narrowed. He could feel the invisible gaze of his adversary pressing down on him. Someone had anticipated his investigation, adjusted their methods, and now they were tracking his every move. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Nice work. Too bad it ends tonight." Cole's pulse quickened. He grabbed his coat and headed out, deciding to follow the digital trail physically. He knew the network had to have a base of operations, a place where the deliveries originated, where the mechanisms of death were prepared. The streets of Lower Manhattan were slick from an earlier drizzle, reflections of neon signs bouncing on wet asphalt. Cole's instincts guided him to a nondescript warehouse near the piers. It looked abandoned, but the hum of activity from inside betrayed the lie. He circled the building, noting cameras, motion sensors, and security patrols. Inside, faint shadows moved across the windows, workers or operatives. He couldn't tell. Taking a deep breath, he slipped through a side door left ajar, careful to avoid the creaking boards. The interior smelled of oil, metal, and something else, something chemical, that made his head swim. Rows of takeout boxes that neatly stacked, each tied with codes and addresses. He snapped pictures quickly. The evidence was irrefutable. This was the nerve center of the killings. Suddenly, a door slammed behind him. Cole spun, heart hammering, but the hallway was empty. A soft mechanical whirring echoed from the far end of the warehouse, and he realized too late that he had triggered a sensor. A trap. Footsteps approached, deliberate and unhurried. Cole's hand went to his gun, but he was already cornered. And then a voice, calm, cold, and amused, echoed from the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here, Detective." Cole swallowed hard. Whoever this was, they were not human in method or mindset. They were patient, meticulous, and confident that he could not escape. The hunt had become personal. And now Cole understood. The line between predator and prey had vanished entirely. Ethan Cole's pulse thundered in his ears as he moved silently through the dimly lit warehouse. Shadows danced across the walls from the occasional flicker of faulty lights. Every step he took was calculated, measured, but he knew it was only a matter of time before his luck ran out. Ahead, he spotted rows of labeled takeout boxes, identical to those found at each victim's apartment. Each one represented a death carefully orchestrated. His stomach churned. Whoever ran this network had considered every detail, every contingency. Nothing was left to chance. Suddenly, a sharp click echoed behind him. Cole spun just in time to see a glint of metal. A small dark poison, fast-acting, nearly invisible, embedded itself into his shoulder. Pain flared immediately, searing and cold all at once. His vision blurred. Cole gritted his teeth and ducked behind a stack of boxes. His heart raced. Whoever had set this trap wasn't just protecting themselves, they were anticipating his every move. His head swam with calculations, escape routes, possible reinforcements, cameras, exits. A shadow fell across the corridor. A figure, tall and precise, moved with terrifying confidence. Cole realized that this was no ordinary operative. This was the hand guiding the machine, the mind behind the deaths. "Detective Cole," a calm, measured voice said, echoing in the cavernous space. "You've been very curious, admirable, foolish." Cole's vision narrowed. He forced himself to stay upright, his hand gripping his pistol. "Who are you?" he demanded, voice steady despite the burning pain in his shoulder. A smile, thin and calculating, appeared beneath the hood. "You'll know soon enough. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. But don't worry, you'll contribute to the pattern before you die." Cole's mind raced. He had faced killers, cultists, cybercriminals, but nothing like this. The methodical precision, the invisible threads linking every death, it was terrifying in its elegance. The figure stepped closer, and Cole realized he had only seconds. With a sudden burst of strength, he kicked a stack of boxes into the intruder's path and bolted. Pain seared through him, threatening to buckle his knees, but adrenaline carried him forward. He crashed through a side exit and into the alley, the chill night air cutting through his fevered senses. Behind him, muffled shouts and the clang of metal echoed. They were pursuing him, closing in. Cole ducked into a side street, disappearing into the neon-lit chaos of Manhattan. His body burned, but his mind was alive, racing faster than ever before. He knew two things with certainty. One, he had barely survived. Two, the person behind the deaths was no ordinary killer. They were calculating, omnipresent, and now aware that he was not only onto them but a threat. Cole limped to a taxi and instructed the driver to take him somewhere safe. The city passed by in a blur of neon and wet asphalt, oblivious to the war raging in its shadows. For the first time, he understood the true scale of the threat. This wasn't about random killings anymore. It was a hunt, and he was now the prey. Detective Ethan Cole sat in the dim light of his safe house, shoulders still throbbing from the dart, mind sharp with fury and calculation. He had survived by mere seconds, but the encounter had changed everything. This was no longer a case to solve, it was a war of wits, precision, And survival. Vivian Harp arrived, her eyes scanning the perimeter before she stepped inside. You look like hell, she said, her tone sharp but tinged with concern. She placed a small first aid kit on the table and began cleaning the wound. We need a plan. They know you're onto them. If we don't act, the next delivery won't be the last. Cole nodded, his thoughts a whirlwind. He reviewed the photos of the victims, delivery logs, and the warehouse images. The pattern was emerging more clearly now. Each victim had indirect connections to a clandestine network, a financial ring, a political scandal, a cybersecurity leak. The victims weren't random. They were nodes in a web designed to protect someone far above the restaurant's level. They're organized, Cole said, tapping the laptop. And someone orchestrates it all. The precision, the reach. It's someone with resources, someone with an intelligence I haven't seen before. Vivian leaned closer, pointing at a section of emails. Look at this. All the orders, all the deliveries, they're coded. Not just names, but symbols, times, even addresses. Whoever is running this knows exactly how to manipulate the city, the food, even the timing. They're untouchable unless we can anticipate their next move. Cole's eyes narrowed. He realized that the next delivery could be anyone, a random contact in his circle, a witness, or even Vivian herself. Time was a weapon, and the hunter was counting on them to panic. He formulated a risky plan, a controlled sting. They would set a trap using a fake order, monitored from multiple angles, hoping to lure the operative into the open. It was dangerous. If anything went wrong, it could be fatal. But Cole's instinct screamed that it was the only way to expose the network's inner workings. As night fell over New York, the city lights casting long, distorted reflections on wet streets, Cole and Vivian moved into position. Cameras, sensors, decoys, they deployed everything with meticulous care. And then, in the darkness, a shadow emerged from the alley. The operative moved confidently, unaware or perhaps unconcerned that they were walking straight into a trap. Cole held his breath, every muscle coiled, waiting for the right moment to strike. But just as he prepared to act, a second figure appeared, familiar but impossible. Victor Liang, the restaurant manager, walked calmly behind the operative, holding a sleek device that pulsed faintly in the dark. Cole realized, with a chill crawling up his spine, that Liang was no mere manager. He was the lieutenant, or possibly the right hand of the true mastermind. Cole's pulse quickened. This meant the architect of the death was still higher up, unseen, calculating. And now they were aware of him, adjusting their plan in real time. The night air thickened with tension. The trap was set. The players were in motion. And somewhere, in the shadows of Manhattan, the mastermind watched, always one step ahead. Detective Ethan Cole moved cautiously through the abandoned loft in Soho, the faint hum of electricity from overhead lights filling the silence. He had tracked the network to its core, following the trail of coded deliveries, encrypted messages, and the bodies left behind. Each step brought him closer to the person orchestrating the deaths, the invisible hand behind Mandarin Garden's deadly machine. Vivian Harper stayed close, eyes sharp, notebook and camera ready. Are you sure this is it? She whispered. Cole nodded. The patterns lead here. Whoever is behind this has been hiding in plain sight, watching the city, controlling it from a distance. Tonight, we find out who. The loft was deceptively ordinary. Wooden beams, cracked plaster walls, and the faint smell of disinfectant. But the organized chaos was unmistakable. Shelves lined with labeled boxes, screens showing security camera feeds from restaurants, warehouses, and even some apartments. Cole realized the full scope. The network extended far beyond a single restaurant. It was a citywide operation, meticulously coordinated. Then he saw the figure in the center of the room, a man in a tailored suit, mid-40s, with a calm but icy presence. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and they locked onto Cole with unnerving precision. Detective Cole, the man said smoothly, a faint smile curling his lips. I've been expecting you. Cole's hand instinctively went to his gun, but the man's expression didn't falter. You've done well, He continued. 3 weeks, and yet you still underestimate the scale of what you're facing. Each victim was necessary, each death a lesson. And now you're here. You're the one behind this, Cole said, voice steady despite the adrenaline. Why? What do you gain from killing people in secret? The man's smile widened, almost sadistic in its calm. Power, detective, information, control. New York is a living organism, and I am its surgeon. Precision is everything. No mistakes. No chaos, just order. Death without trace is merely the tool. Vivian gasped, but Cole stayed focused. You're not invincible. You've made mistakes. And tonight, it ends. The man's eyes flicked to a nearby monitor, then back to Cole. Do you really think you can end this, with a few cameras and a fake order? I've anticipated you every step of the way. You're part of the pattern now. Always a step behind, always reacting. Cole's mind raced. There was only one chance. Disrupt the network physically, create chaos in its core, and force the mastermind into the open. He nodded subtly to Vivian, who triggered a hidden flash of light from her camera, momentarily blinding the man. Seizing the moment, Cole lunged forward, knocking the monitor to the floor, cutting the feeds, plunging the loft into temporary darkness. The mastermind cursed, and the metallic clang echoed as he reached for a concealed weapon. Cole and Vivian moved in unison, keeping him disoriented. Adrenaline surged as the mastermind staggered back, eyes wide with anger and surprise. For the first time, Cole realized that even the most meticulous planner could be human, vulnerable, desperate, capable of error. The fight was brief, brutal, and tense. Cole managed to subdue the mastermind, handcuffs clicking into place. He stared at the man, breathing hard. You underestimated me, Cole said quietly. And now the pattern ends. Outside, the city continued its restless hum, oblivious to the invisible war waged in its streets. But inside that loft, the mastermind, once untouchable, was finally exposed. Yet even as Cole led him away, a lingering thought remained. How many more networks like this existed, silently operating, invisible to the world? For now, at least, one deadly web had been broken. The morning sun spilled over Manhattan, glinting off wet streets and the steel towers of the city. Detective Ethan Cole sat in his office, exhausted but alert, staring at the empty chair where the mastermind had been booked into custody. The nightmare was over, or so it seemed. Vivian Harper entered, carrying a stack of files. The authorities will handle him now, she said. But what about the network? Mandarin Garden? The shell companies? Cole rubbed his temples. We've dismantled the core, but someone else could rise. This city, it's too big, interconnected. But at least this branch is finished. Their relief was short-lived. As Cole leaned back, a message flashed across his phone. An anonymous tip, time-stamped at 3:17 a.m. You didn't see all of us. Some patterns survive. Cole felt a chill. The mastermind's capture hadn't ended the danger, it had merely lifted one veil. The city, with all its shadows and hidden corners, still harbored secrets, silent operators who moved unseen. Later, at the crime lab, Cole reviewed the final autopsy reports. Every victim had a tiny, nearly imperceptible mark, almost a signature, left by the mastermind to prove control. The dots connected now like a constellation, only visible to those who knew where to look. Cole returned to the loft where the network had been orchestrated. It was empty, stripped bare, but the sense of danger lingered in the air. He walked among the shattered monitors and scattered boxes, imagining the lives disrupted, the silent terror imposed on the city outside. The city roared back to life. Sirens, traffic, pedestrians, all oblivious to the invisible war waged in their midst. Cole felt a strange mixture of triumph and unease. Justice had been served, but the system's fragility was undeniable. Vivian stepped beside him. Do you ever wonder, she said softly, if all of this could happen again? Cole looked out over the skyline, the sunrise burning gold against the towers. The city will always have shadows, he replied. But as long as people like us are paying attention, some patterns can be broken. He turned back to the empty loft, a quiet determination settling over him. The hunt had changed him. He would never see New York the same way again. Every corner, every alley, every delivery bag could conceal secrets, threats, or death. Yet for the first time in weeks, Cole allowed himself a small, hard-earned sense of peace. One killer had been stopped. One invisible web had been shattered. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the city, life went on vulnerable, oblivious, and blissfully unaware. Cole's phone buzzed one last time, a delivery alert. Mandarin Gardens logo flashing on the screen. He stared at it, expression unreadable. For a moment, time seemed to hang. Then he swiped it away, letting it vanish into the digital ether. The city exhaled around him, alive, dangerous, and infinitely complex. And Detective Ethan Cole, scarred but unbroken, stepped out into the morning light, ready for whatever came next.